Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee, and I'm excited to be talking today about the impact of generative AI on the workforce and how leadership in that space was going to have to change. So, I'm a little discombobulated in a different space today because I'm having some work done in my house. So, let me just get oriented here a little bit. So, I think one of the things that we want to look at is how is the workforce going to change and how are you going to prepare your employees for that? So, I'm going to talk about that this week. And then next week, I'll be talking more about the leadership implications too, as well. So let's get going. First of all, I'd love for you to share where you're coming from and also where you see generative AI impacting your workforce. It could be anything from what jobs are going to be really accelerated, which jobs are going to be unfortunately eliminated, and hopefully those people find other positions in your organization or you're supporting them and finding another position. But I'd like to hear what you all are thinking about what the impact's going to be on your workforce. And this is a really delicate topic because we've seen what technology has done. And technology has always been a creator and a destroyer of jobs. You think about ATMs, for example. I love this example. ATMs made the bank teller much less relevant. You don't come into a bank now and see a counter with people standing behind it with tellers standing there dispensing money. You go to the ATM for that. Instead, what you see inside a bank are financial advisors, people who can work with you on various aspects of your banking needs. So it's a very different type of environment. You still have people in the bank, but the roles are different. And as you can imagine, that shift took place over time. And a recent study by David Arthur found that 60% of today's workers are employed in occupations that didn't exist in 1940. So you think about all the software programmers, you think about digital marketing managers or web page designers, website designers. And those jobs just didn't exist again because there was no such thing as the internet. And we also see a lot of demand for adjacent jobs for services like healthcare and education, food services that have sprung up because business and work and our economy is really different now because of technology. And I believe that generative AI is going to do the same. This, and we can see this happening. And while we can feel better about the fact that some jobs are going to be created, we also know that some jobs are going to go away, similar to the bank teller and ATMs. So we know that generative AI is already creating value. McKinsey, in their latest report, which is absolutely fantastic, the State of Generative AI that came out in July, estimated that a third of organizations are already using generative AI in at least one function. And they also looked at some of the companies that were being accelerating in it, and they're already moving past, what should we do with this to really building and integrating generative AI across your organization. And then Nielsen Norman Group found that they were also finding significant productivity gains around certain tasks. I'm just going to read out a couple of these. So they found that when it came to customer inquiries per hour, customer service people could handle 14% more. For professionals, could write more documents per hour, so 59% more documents. I have definitely found that my productivity is much higher now because I can use it to write simple emails, summarize documents. My productivity is so much higher because of generative AI. And then when it came to software programming, they found that coders were able to code 126% more code programs per week. So this is significant. And I've been speaking to some leaders for the research on my book, and they're saying that they're expecting to see 25% productivity gains in the area where they are using generative AI by the end of this year, by the end of 2023. So why is this a big deal? Well, if you look at the average productivity growth in the US and EU, it hovers around like 1% over the 12 years in the period right before COVID. And you can see now, if we're already seeing 25% gains in productivity in some areas with generative AI, this is a really big deal. So it's highly transformative. That's why I'm spending so much time on this and thinking about it. So love to see if there are any comments here. Oh, there are a lot of comments here. All right, let's see. Who do we have here? Let's say hi to Mahmoud. We have Delislava coming from Bulgaria, Paula from Central Illinois, Basi from Manchester, UK. This is great to see you all. Hamid from France, Toulouse. So great to see you. You have Ubedi from Nigeria and Slilia from Mozambique. Very international group today. Saying hi to Tawfiq from the UAE, and Najir from India, and Sanjay also from India, and Rahul wants to, hi Rahul, good to see you here too as well. And we have somebody from Missouri, and Bill Sanders from the Black Hills, love that area, and Belafonte from Zambia. So glad to see you all. And I invite you to put into the chat too as well, what you are seeing and where do you anticipate your workforce changing because of generative AI. I'm really curious to see what that looks like. So let me go on and talk a little bit about the different types of jobs that are going to be impacted. So I have here a slide that I can share with you, and I apologize for how small it is, but it's a really, really good slide. And let me get the URL for you too as well, so you can go see it yourself. So you can see. Oh, sorry for the typo here. Let me just fix that a little bit. The URL is always a little bit tricky because it's this disgusting uh, long thing from Dropbox, but I try to put it into a bit.ly. So you can go to bit.ly on bit.ly/CLI AI workforce impact. So hopefully you can see all of that. And I'll put that into the chat too as well. All right, give me a second here. Go into chat. You gotta love these little dashboards here. Yes, people ask me sometimes if I have a producer on the side helping me with all the production here. It's just me using StreamYard. So apologies and thank you for your patience as I do these kinds of things. Okay, so this slide, what it shows is Goldman Sachs' estimate, and they have said that 300 million jobs could be impacted. And you're going to see a different types of exposure to the automation created by generative AI. So at the very top of office and administrative support, as you could see from the Nielsen Norman Group statistic that I shared before, if you're seeing like 59% productivity gains already at this early stage of generative AI in terms of the documents you can produce, you can see this is going to highly impact the office administrative support fields. Same thing with legal, being able to summarize large amounts of documents, what paralegals are doing, reviewing legal documents. That's a lot of that's going to be automated. And you can go, it's a little hard to see, but they're saying things like architecture and engineering, for example, drafting, the physical and life sciences. That's again, the sort of tedious work you have to do, the repetition to test and lots of different things in the lab work itself. Business and financial operations, especially when it comes to analytics. If you think about where analytics has been traditionally, it's been this inner sanctum of these data jocks. And every once in a while, don't you dare go into that inner sanctum because you don't have any access or knowledge of how to use data analytics and SPSS and all these complicated programs. But now with generative AI, all of us, any of us who have curiosity about data, anyone on the front lines who wants to know, like, I wonder if this customer and those customers can be segmented into a group. Anybody with an interesting question can get the answer now simply by tapping it into a chat box. So I believe that we're going to see a lot of impact in these jobs. And in particular, we will be seeing these first draft generators, is what I call them, the copywriters, the social media managers, people in call centers, paralegals, administrative jobs, as Goldman Sachs points out. These will be the areas that are impacted first, because these are obvious use cases and capabilities that generative AI has. So just want to go through and see what others comments we have. All right, so we have this comment from someone. I'm sorry, I don't have your name. It's not showing up in LinkedIn. From marketing to HR to finance to call centers to legal to sales, basically every function. No function is off limits. AI can be a powerful enabler for unleashing human potential. And it saddens me to see companies blindly using it to replace humans. Hopefully, the tide shifts as we move through the hype cycle. Let's talk about this a little bit. Thank you so much for this comment. I in particular agree. Every single function that is doing some sort of analytics, generating content, summarizing, well, those are things that all of us do. And there are very few functions, and I just want to show just one. I just want to go back and show one thing on this. There may be some functions that have a lot less impact nowadays, that have no impact. So you can imagine construction and engineering, probably not as much, but there will still be some impact, and you need to think about what that looks like. So one of the things that what I think is so important, though, is what this person emphasized, is what are the ethics and responsibilities for us in terms as leaders to facilitate this change? How fast are we going to go? And that's something I'll talk about in just a second. I'm going to go through some of these other comments here. Andy is sharing there's a big impact from marketing, legal, and program management, mainly ROI, return on investment models to fuel growth. And also hello from New York too, Andy. So I think we'll talk about this in just a second, because it's really, and I'm talking to leaders and I ask them, so you're going to get this 25% productivity gain by the end of the year. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to have people work less and pay them the same? Probably not. Are you going to lay people off because of this? And people are very reluctant. They're like, well, we're hoping to upskill them or reskill them. We're going to need prompt engineers. And I'm like, at 25% productivity gains, it's going to be hard to justify keeping all of them on. So what are you going to do with this? Others are saying, we're going to manage this with attrition. Call centers, for example, have very, very high attrition rates. So instead of having to replace them, they'll just let them leave. And hopefully it balances it out in terms of the people leaving, and your productivity gains can just replace them. So there's a lot of different ways people are thinking about this. But I think we're just dancing around the fact that there's going to be some really, really big changes happening because of these productivity gains. And what's the responsibility of us as leaders to take care of our workforce as we go through this? So I want to talk about that for just a second here, because one of the things to do, and if you were listening to my live stream or saw my article on my LinkedIn newsletter, you saw my last week's focus was on how do you create a prioritized list of generative AI initiatives to pursue, because you can't do everything. So what will you do? Take a look at that, or if you already know what your initial generative AI initiatives are going to be, now sit down, look at each of those initiatives and decide and examine what's the impact going to be in my workforce? Who is going to be impacted? And this is so important because you want to be thinking about what upskilling is needed. And also, because I'll give an example, software coders at the very lowest levels, they're just writing code and doing a lot of that heavy lifting. But with a lot of the tools that are now available, anything from GitHub's Copilot to code interpreter from OpenAI, where you can put in code and check it and do lots of other things and have it actually do a lot of that heavy lifting. You won't need as many people at that entry level. Instead, you need one level above that, people who are experienced, who have written a lot of code and can tell whether the code being generated by these AI machines are actually is good or not. Because we know it sometimes just makes stuff up. It says, hey, this is the way code was written before, so it kind of makes sense. So testing it, reviewing it, refining it, changing it, and engineering prompts are all really important things to do. So we're going to need some upskilling around this. Also, as we're moving into this space, a lot of times we're asking people who have been traditionally in the IT space and thinking about AI from a technology point of view, now having to think about business strategy. And business strategists having to think about the AI and the technology. And so there's training that's needed, upskilling that's needed on both sides to be able to think much more holistically about generative AI strategies. Because these two functions have traditionally been in two different areas, And now you needed this cross-functional fertilization between the two. So upskilling is really important. So think about where upskilling is needed in order for your initiatives to go through. But then the question becomes reskilling going in the future. So I think one thing that we need to think about is how quickly this is going to happen. How much growth do we want to see? How much savings? How much bottom line profits do we want to realize? And this again, you want to think about over what time period also as well. And just because you can take the profits very quickly, should you? And I'm realizing my connection here is going in and out. So hopefully you can still see this. But the thing here is to maximize the value for your stakeholders, not just your shareholders. So that's looking at your shareholders, obviously, but your employees, your partners, your supply chain, and even your community. So, and community being the places where you're doing business, potentially even with your supply partners, if you're running call centers in the Philippines, for example, of your organizations. There's a lot under the control of your organizations and what you can actually have and do. So let's see, let's go through and see if there are any other questions. We have Arlinda, thank you for joining from Angola. And then we also have Dr. Leonhardt Washlager, and he has a bunch of different things here about asking the customers for, sorry, a bunch of different returns, a bunch of prompts to maximize them, I think is what he's saying. So I think what Leonhardt is saying is that we have, if you're thinking about what are the best ways to approach thinking about how generative AI is going to be used, it's really working with your customers and understanding what is that they need, and then training your employees to make sure that they also understand them too as well. So I'm going to just wrap up for today to just think about one last thing here, in that when you're thinking about the workforce, this is not an HR problem. This is not something that only the people in your people team are thinking about. This is a business issue, and it's a challenge and an opportunity facing all leaders in the organization. And in particular, we need to be thinking now today about how we prepare our organization, how we prepare our people for this transformation. We're going to go talk more about that next week in terms of, again, the leadership aspects of it. But I think really in particular here, a really important part is to think about when you have AI coming in and it's going to do all of these amazing things, there is a huge impact on people as well. And the most important thing to do right now is to prepare and to think through what those implications are. We had the privilege, and I said we had the benefit of time on our side when these other big transformational technologies came in to start impacting us. We look at internet, we look at the development of social media, of mobile. These were huge seismic changes that technology had on our society and our businesses. But we frankly had decades to prepare for that. We had time to be able to make these changes in our organization, to slowly adjust. With generative AI, it is happening so quickly. My biggest concern is that we are looking at all the advantages it brings, but we also need to think about what those implications are, what the consequences of those are, both in creating new jobs and also destroying these jobs. So let's see, a couple other questions here. Satyan is asking, how can AI be made accessible to all strata of society, whether rich or poor? Technology is successful only if it reaches all the classes. I recently did a really interesting interview with a company based in Africa. And one of the things that they were talking about is, in Africa, you have a lot of issues. You have 30% unemployment. You have lack of people who are educated and professional and able to have the skills to do these kind of higher order jobs of analytics and business strategy. So there's a shortage of talent in Africa. And this leader was sharing with me that generative AI is going to be a huge game changer because it'll allow those people to do more, and also people who have to really optimize education, because you won't need as many specialized teachers. You can train the generative AI to train the workforce to do these kinds of jobs. So he said, this is going to be a huge game changer for us as a continent in our ability to leapfrog into the future, to become much more professional. And so second, I think one of the things that I find so interesting about generative AI is that all you need is a browser. All you need is the ability to access these tools, and that has a lot of interesting implications in terms of education, as we see in Khan Academy trying and using generative AI to create personalized lesson plans. But it also just will have changes in the way that we operate and learn, and who has access to this. Now, I think we're still going to have some strata, because some people are just going to be really good at using these generative AI engines, know how to use them for prompts and things, but it just will increase and give so many more people access to this basic level of knowledge and learning that we have never seen before. So I'm quite optimistic, hopefully not idealistically so, about the fact that we still have a long ways to go in terms of addressing inequality in our society. But I think that this is going to be one of those areas where it's going to make a big difference. All right. So let's see. We have here, let's see. I'm trying to look through the comments here. Give me a chance here. We have Jean talking about management consulting is missing some opportunities as I see it. Oh, don't get me into this. I've been in the consulting space for many, many years. And I was speaking to one CEO, and I said, what's your generative AI strategy? I mean, we have people now that people will know, that your clients will know that you're creating all this value at a fraction of the cost, because it doesn't take you that much. Will you be able to maintain your cost structure? And the response was, we've weathered other challenges in the past. We've always come out and been able to create value for our clients and demand the fees that we have. And I went, okay, great. And I see a lot of consulting firms doing a lot of work, investing tremendously in generative AI tools and capabilities deep inside their organization. So I think to a great extent, this person was absolutely correct. But I also feel that the days when you could rely on, that you would count on your consulting firms to do a lot of this analysis, will not be there so much anymore, because you can have those tools and capabilities inside your organization. So management consulting firms are going to up their game, in the same way that I look at myself and I'm thinking, I'm going to have to up my game, because so many of the more basic questions people can now get answered. You don't need me to tell you what generative AI does. You can just go and ask generative AI what it does. You can get some initial strategies and code of conducts from generative AI and search engines combined together. So what value do I create as an analyst, as an advisor? And it's a big question that we're all asking ourselves. All right, let's see. Jean is saying general terms and conditions are being changed on all sites, meaning we all read and publish is being used without our consent. Oh, so this is about the intellectual property and copyright. This is a huge issue, because we know, and the big large language models like OpenAI and Bing, they all know that they built their engines on proprietary copyrighted information. But here's the thing: copyright law only protects the expression of an idea. And so that means the actual words on the page, the picture, the image itself, the expression of an idea. It doesn't protect the idea itself. And so in many ways are protected, but I think copyright law is going to have to change to address this. And I'm already seeing some engines, some startups really addressing and saying, if you want to use my art, you want to use my ideas, then come to my own proprietary generative AI engine and use that there. So that I can get and reap some of the benefits from that, rather than just you using my creativity output for your own purposes. So There's a lot. I think, and you look at regulation, copyright law, intellectual property is going to have to take a huge leap forward. And we all know that this is an area of great use. So, Paula has a great question here and a good point. I use AI work for helping me with emails and documents, but I worry about security, so I don't use it at home. Very wise to be cautious, Paula. I'm thinking here that we should talk about security sometime. If you haven't already, if you're using ChatGPT, make sure you're doing going to the settings and you have an option of turning off safe chat. And that ensures that your content is not being used to go feed and train the AI. And so that's really important if you're using anything that's proprietary and you don't want to be using it. This is especially an issue if you're using Code Interpreter. In my latest email newsletter, I shared an example of how I uploaded data. It was publicly available data from the World Heritage Organization, UNESCO, and I uploaded the World Heritage sites and asked it to plot them on a map with a legend to code it for cultural, natural, and a hybrid of those things, and just made a map. So normally that would have taken me forever to do, and I did it with just one prompt. And you can see the map. And so that data I felt pretty comfortable uploading. I wouldn't upload proprietary customer data. And this is where, again, we're seeing the use of private LLMs coming into use, where you are contracting with some of the providers, putting it behind your firewall, pointing it against your own internal data, and you can use that to process and analyze all the information you want. Your support documents, your proprietary financial documents, all of it's safe behind your firewall. So that is coming very, very soon. You'll be able to do that. And I think that's a really important area. All right, I'm going to take a couple more comments here. Let's see. This is a great point, Jean. About 50% of employees now use ChatGPT, but of course, they don't talk about it. Absolutely true. And we'll talk a little bit in a future live stream about the training, the guardrails, the education that's absolutely needed. If you are not already working on that and making sure people know how to use ChatGPT and also use the outputs in a responsible way, you should absolutely be thinking about that. All right, last comment here, hopefully, and then we're going to have to close out. So Satyan says, generative AI will also have a direct impact on organizational and individual imaginations and nonlinear ideas. Really good point. It could hamper the creativity in an organization, drafting emails, inferring balance sheets, all things are given on the platter. Any thoughts? Yes. So I'll give you an analogy. So if you think about our map reading skills, they're horrendous. We all use GPSs. We use the maps functions on our phones. I live in disaster-prone California, so we have paper maps in our cars and in our go packs, emergency evacuation packs. Would you know how to use a map if there was no cell service? Is what I ask my kids, and I'm like, no, we'd be totally useless. We just need to hang out with you, mom. So we lose these skills, but we gain other skills. And so I do think that creativity and innovation will still be very, very prized. It will be extremely important, even more important, because if you can have the generative AI do the most basic things, generate copy, create variations and derivatives, those are not very creative actions. It can do the heavy lifting, and that allows us more time to think about the more creative things that generative AI cannot. So I absolutely believe that AI can be creative, it can be innovative, but it requires, at least right now, the input from humans to tell it what to be creative and innovative about. And so the more creative and innovative you can be in your prompts, the more the better results you're going to get. So we're going to have, and we already have, AI artists. We have people who write beautifully, even more so with AI. I am unabashedly using generative AI to help me write my book. Now, it's not writing the book, all of it for me. The ideas are going into it, but I'm using it as a tool, as a collaborator with me side by side. And I'm being very clear and documenting when I'm using AI, how I'm using it, and it all gets munged up together in this thing called a book. So is it am I being less creative? In many ways, I'm thinking I'm able to do a lot more because the amount of time I spend on it is less on the actual like painstaking detail that's required to do a lot of the writing. And if AI can help me do a lot of heavy lifting, all the better. Let's see. And Polycarp has a great, Ibarra has a great point here that lecturers have to change the way they cascade knowledge with GPT. Learning will become more two-way. That's such a great point because I think one of the areas I'm most excited about impacting this is education. The idea that you can have now, in the past, you had one teacher to like 30 students. Now, what if you get 30 teachers to one student? Meaning that a student learns in many, many different ways across many different areas. And if you could tap into that passion, enthusiasm for learning, some people are auditory learners, others are visual learners, other people are kinesthetic and experiential learners. And if you can take a lesson plan and create it for all these different types of learners and also understand where they are in their understanding. And so you can see and test, do you understand this? Back, no, you don't understand it. We're going to go back and focus on this one area for you. It just flips the game when it comes to education. So we really need to arm our teachers, our educators with these tools to make them available to them. And I'm very excited to see what comes out over the next 18 months or so in terms of these tools for teachers. All right, that's what we have for today. Next week, I'm going to be talking about how generative AI, with this generative AI workforce that's here, I kind of think of them as now having superpowers because they can do so much more than they had before. But it also means that they become really different in terms of their expectations, what they can do, and how that is going to change their expectations around leadership. So we'll talk about the impact and how our leadership needs to change because of generative AI next week. So join me then. And until then, take care, stay safe out there with generative AI, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.